Hey everybody, welcome to Garden Time with Belle. Well, do you ever walk into your garden and wonder, where do I even start today? Feeling a little overwhelmed and stressed? I know that I used to, until I decided for me to create and designate specific days of the week for certain garden tasks. Recently, I published a video on what I do on Tuesdays, which is my trimming Tuesdays, deadheading, light pruning, that kind of thing. Today, though, it's all about Fertilizer Fridays. Fertilizer Fridays for me is really just a simple weekly routine that does make a tremendous difference in pumping out lots of beautiful flowers, whether it be my annuals, my roses, my perennials that are flowering. It makes a huge difference, as well as making a difference in my raised bed garden, where I am growing all kinds of beautiful vegetables and herbs for me and my family. So today I want to accomplish three things in this video. I want to give a very easy, beginner-friendly look at fertilizing. I know that when I started my gardening journey and people would talk about, fertilizing this and that, I'm like, my head would just spin. I'm like, what are you talking about? What is this all about? Why does it matter? So we're going to talk about that really in basic terms. So we'll talk a little bit about that, what to look for when you're purchasing fertilizer. I'm going to show you exactly the fertilizers that I use. I'm going to show you the routine that I use every Fertilizer Friday, how I like to fertilize my plants. I have notes here because I really want to make this more comprehensive on fertilizing in terms of how often, what type of plants need what kind of fertilizer, without it getting too bogged down. So let's get started on talking about Fertilizer Fridays and why you want to include this in your weekly routine, because it absolutely makes a difference. So before I get into some simple information that you'll want to know about fertilizing your garden, I'm going to invite everybody to please like and subscribe to my channel. Doing that helps me grow my channel. It helps me connect with more amazing gardeners just like you. And if you're coming back for more of my videos and you've already subscribed, thank you guys so much for your support. I really, really appreciate it. I love connecting with gardeners out there. And just a little FYI, if you're new to my channel, I am a master gardener here in the state of Missouri. I am your average home gardener. I garden in a zone 6B in the middle of our state. We have extreme winters and we have extreme hot summers. And so those of you that experience similar growing conditions, I got you. All right, so let's get to it. Before I say anything about specific fertilizers, what I want to encourage everybody to do is to get your soil tested every 2 to 3 years. Very simple process. All states have a university extension service that can do soil tests for you, and they're very reliable. You can get really down detailed information or basic information. I have not had any experience using like the home soil tests that you can buy over the counter. I don't know anything about those. So those of you that are watching, if you all find those pretty reliable, I'd love for you to leave a comment in the description below. Let me know in the comment section, what are the brands, or where do you find those? But for me, it is so worth it to pull my soil from different parts of the garden and get it tested. For me, I do it probably about every 3 years. That's going to let you know what your soil needs. If your soil is really low in certain macro and micronutrients, it'll tell you. And then not only that, but it'll give you recommendations about how often you should be fertilizing and what your soil needs. However, in basic gardening, you want to try to add organic matter to your soil. I'm not talking about container gardening now. I'm talking about in the ground gardening, in raised beds, or right in the ground. You want to add organic matter. And when we say organic matter, what the heck are we talking about? We're talking about things like mulch. And mulch can be finely ground pine bark, finely ground wood bark, straw. We love to use leaf litter, where we grind up our leaves in the fall and store them and then put those in our beds. There's all kinds of amendments you can add. Worm castings. The list goes on and on. The more organic matter you add into your soil, you create life in your soil. It's not just great for your plants, it really enhances the health and fertility of your soil. So I can't encourage you enough to think about how can you add organic matter into your soil. And no matter how great your soil is, I have found in my many years of gardening, when I really got serious about fertilizing my plants, there was a tremendous change in the flowers, in the health of my plants, and how much vegetables and fruit and things I could produce. So I am somebody that absolutely believes that you can add and I only use organic. You can add organic fertilizer to your garden, and you're not going to burn your plants. You're not going to over fertilize typically, unless you just are, dumping the entire bag on a plant. It's very hard with organics to harm your plants. The only synthetic fertilizers I use would be for flowering annuals, and I'll talk about those in a minute. They are man-made fertilizers. They're not filled with really organic, naturally occurring things in soil. They're man-made, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. Okay, the basic thing you need to know about fertilizers is NPK, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. Even if you don't know what those three things are and you don't really care, they're represented on any fertilizer that you buy in 1, 2, 3 number spots. So let me show you here, for instance. Proven winners, this water-soluble plant food for flowering plants. If you look at this container, it's going to have 3 numbers, NPK. That's nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. And in this case, this is a 24, 12, 7. All right, 24 nitrogen, 12 phosphorus, and 7 potassium. So that's what you want to look for on any fertilizers. And hopefully when you go to the store, you'll see it somewhere on the bag. Usually it's pretty prominent, but a lot of times you have to turn the bag over or the container over and find out what is the NPK ratio. All right, so you know what NPK is. Why do we care? Simple, quick science lesson here. Nitrogen, the first number. Nitrogen in your soil for your plants produces foliage, green. Think nitrogen greens up a plant. All right. Phosphorus, the second number on all fertilizers. Phosphorus is responsible for the roots and the fruit and the blooms. So it really has a lot to do with flower power, but also in terms of things like vegetables, you want a lot of phosphorus in your plants like tomatoes and peppers, because as you know how they grow, they produce a flower, and then from that flower is fruit. So if you really want lots of tomatoes and peppers, you want to make sure the fertilizer you're using has plenty of phosphorus. And last but not least, the last number is K for potassium. And potassium really is an overall kind of macronutrient that helps with overall health of your plant. And the healthier we can keep our plants, the more disease resistant they are. So NPK, nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. All right, let's talk about what types of fertilizers you're going to use for certain plants and when or how often you want to be fertilizing specific plants in your garden. And don't let this intimidate you. I just put out basically a whole sample of different types of fertilizers I use. I definitely don't use these every Friday. Some I do, and I'll show you what those are in just a minute. And I grabbed some notes here because I really want this to be sort of a quick, comprehensive look at when and what type of fertilizer to use. So let's talk about the thing that most home gardeners have. You often have annuals, right? Beautiful flowers that you plant when the weather warms up. Here in mid-Missouri, you know, we're putting out our annuals the end of April, early May, and most of them will survive pretty well until October, till the first frost. So hanging baskets, containers in the ground, flowering annuals are a very special case, and those are the only thing on this list today that I faithfully fertilize every Friday, and it makes a huge difference. Before I show you which fertilizers I like to use for my flowering annuals, I'm going to put a picture on the screen. I might have shared this before in a video, but I want you to see, it just does not lie. When you see pictures of plants that are fertilized or not fertilized weekly and the difference it can make, pictures don't lie. It is impactful. So let me put that on the screen. All right. So what you're seeing on the screen right now are Supertunia Vista Paradise. So I think I did this 3 or 4 years ago to show people how important it is to do weekly fertilizers and the difference it can make. So in this picture, you're noticing 3 hanging baskets. They all were located in the same spot. They were planted on the same day. That is only one beautiful Proven Winners Vista Petunia, the Paradise version. That's only one plant in about a 10-inch pot or hanging basket. 2 of those that you see on the ground were fertilized with liquid fertilizer every Friday, and the other one was not. You see the difference? So I think I even circled the one that was not given weekly fertilizer. Massive difference. Now, the one I didn't fertilize every week, it looks okay, right? It's all right, but why not make it look fabulous and make it look fabulous the entire summer? So for those of you that go to your nurseries and you purchase the big, gorgeous hanging baskets that are in early May already filled to the capacity, and you bring those home, and by mid-July, if you live in a hot and humid environment like I do, they're looking kind of raggedy. They're looking kind of sad. Almost always, the chances are you chose not, or you didn't know about how important it is to do weekly fertilizing, because those annuals have a very short life. Their job is to pump out gorgeous flowers all summer long, and they have to have food. We have to feed them so that they flower. So I hope that is enough to inspire you. Take the time once a week to give them a dose of food. So let me show you what I like to use. You can use any water-soluble fertilizer for your flowering annuals. I use the Proven Winners water-soluble fertilizer, and this is a 24-12-17. Remember NPK? It has a lot of really great things. I swear by this one, as well as Jack's Blossom Booster. This is a 10-30-20. So 30 is that middle number, which is phosphorus. Phosphorus produces fruit and flowers. So if you want flower or lots of blooms, then find yourself a fertilizer like this that really does promote more blooms, especially for the flowering annuals. Do you remember earlier I said that I use organic fertilizers in my entire garden, which I do, except for flowering annuals. So these that I just showed you are synthetic. They're not an organic. And because I'm not eating these flowers or serving them to my family, I feel confident that using some synthetics is perfectly fine. Yeah, so Fertilizer Friday. Water soluble, what the heck does that mean to those of you that are beginner gardeners? So this is what it looks like. This is a granular fertilizer. This one's a little wet, actually. Probably got water in there on Fertilizer Friday. Anyhow, this is a granular fertilizer. You mix it with water. Again, just follow the directions on any of these fertilizers. I'm not going to go into that. Who has time for that? Follow your directions on how much water for how much fertilizer, and feed your plants. The other thing I will mention is whenever I first plant up my annuals that I buy at the store in my containers, I throw in some slow release fertilizer. This is some more Proven Winners. These are little pellets. I'm completely out. I need to replenish my supply. But they're little pellets, and you throw those in the soil when you first plant your annuals in your containers or hanging baskets. This is continuous release, but I have found this is not enough. So Fertilizer Friday with this nice drink, this gourmet drink, is what your annuals need. All right, we covered flowering annuals. Done. Let's talk about veggies. All right, those of you that grow veggies like I do, oh my goodness, fertilizing makes a difference. I fertilize everything in my garden, including flowers, when I plant them. Biotone, starter fertilizer. You see how big this bag is? Yeah, it's almost empty. I use this on everything, whether I'm planting in a container, in a raised bed, or in the ground. At planting time, I throw a handful of this. This is a nice organic starter fertilizer, so I cannot recommend it enough. Before I used this, my plants got off to a slow start. Once I started using this, which I've been using this for probably 5 years, I saw a huge difference in how fast my newly planted plants would get started. Okay, so veggies. I like to use a basic garden tone fertilizer. Again, all organic. You can see my different bags here. And this is a 5-10-5 NPK. Remember, P, phosphorus. Phosphorus, fruit and flowers. Veggies, you're growing a lot of flowers and fruits. Things are fruiting. Cucumbers, peppers, tomatoes, etc. So I like to use this. When do I use that? I think the general recommendation is you spread that around your plants. What is it? Let me look at my notes. Monthly. I must say that I don't always do it monthly. Sometimes I've skipped, but I try to. And I'm going to take you out in the raised bed garden today. And so I'll show you how to apply this. Could not be easier. It's granular. You scrape it in the soil, water it in. It's good for a month. So that's what I use on my veggies. Sometimes though, if I'm feeling extra special, I might use a special veggie that's made just for certain crops, tomato tone. I think this is the first year I've tried tomato tone. And again, monthly is best. Let's see here. What's the NPK on the tomato tone? Where is it? Where is it? It's a 346. All right, so tomato tone, if I've got it, I'll use it because it's designed specifically for that. You would think from all the Espoma products I am sharing with you that I have some kind of a paid partnership with them. I don't. I just happen to find that my plants respond well. There are many, many fertilizers out there on the market. You can get organic fertilizer now, everybody. There's at all big box stores. It's so easy to source. It used to sort of 10, 20 years ago be hard to get a hold of. There's no reason why you shouldn't be using organic fertilizer at this point. I mean, why use synthetic, especially on food that you're going to harvest and eat? So I can't encourage you enough. The other thing I love about this Espoma, that company, is they just make it foolproof, right? So if you don't want to think about NPK and go that deep, just look for what the label says. I mean, this is for tomatoes. This is for, herbs and vegetables. They have plant tone. That's sort of a really generalized fertilizer. So again, I kind of like how they have their marketing where it's just like, no thinking involved, right? If you have hydrangeas and you want to turn them blue, you can put this in. So anyways, that makes it, I think, a little simpler for the average home gardener. So those of you that follow my videos know that in my raised bed garden, I grow a lot of herbs. I intersperse herbs all throughout the garden for a lot of reasons, but we won't talk about those, but we will talk about what do they need in terms of fertilizer. And actually, most herbs don't require a ton of fertilizing. In fact, I fertilize probably with the biotone when I first plant them, and then I might do just a general garden tone midway through the season, and that's really it. They're really low fuss plants, so I don't spend a lot of time on fertilizing my herbs. All right, let's talk about perennials and shrubs. Perennial and shrubs, of course, that are coming back, that are in your garden year-round, when they start to produce some new growth early in the season, and for me, that's around April, that's when I give all of them just a general plant food and scratch that into the soil to get them started for the season. I don't have it out here because I think I'm completely out, but plant tone, Espoma makes that, but any kind of basic general fertilizer works really great for those. So in the beginning of the season, and then about midway through the summer, I'll give everything another dose. You can do it monthly, but honestly, I found that mine, especially my really well-established perennials and shrubs, don't need extra fertilizer like on a monthly basis. I get by with in April, and then usually around this time of year, around July, they'll get another dose of basic fertilizer. However, there are two plants that I grow in my garden that I give special fertilizer to. My roses get special care, as well as my panicle hydrangeas. And what I like to use for both of those is Rose Tone by Espoma. So let's talk about that. Same thing. In April, early May, when my hydrangeas and roses start to put on some leafy growth, when I start to see them waking up for the season, I will scratch in some of this Rose Tone around the drip line, and I'll show you how to do that because we're going to do that today, and scratch that in the soil and water it in. And then for both of those, I try every 4 to 6 weeks to come back throughout the summer, throughout the growing season for both of those types of plants. The one thing that you want to be sure you're not doing is fertilizing late in the summer, early fall. You want your roses and hydrangeas and other things to get ready for going to sleep and to be dormant throughout the winter. You don't want them putting on a bunch of growth as the frost is coming, right? You don't want to have the energy going into that. You want the energy to stay down in the soil and to protect your plants. So 4 to 6 weeks before your average, let's see what it would be, your average first frost in the fall, no fertilizing of your perennials and shrubs. So I know that seemed like an awful lot of information, but I just wanted to be comprehensive and giving you the basics. And I tried to put some graphics on the screen for you all. So if you want to do screenshots of that or pause the video so that you can capture that information for future reference, awesome. But now it's time to fertilize. So I am just going to take you with me. We're going to start in the raised bed garden, because in the raised bed garden, we're going to look at fertilizing. I've got cut flowers in there as well as veggies, and they require different kinds of fertilizer. So I'm going to grab what I need and let's get in the raised bed garden. All right, here we are in the raised bed garden, and I think what I want to start with are any of my cut flowers, and because this is going to be the easiest part. And so I'm going to attach my little ortho dial and spray device to my hose right here. And actually, you'll see me do this several times today, because as we go around the house and I'm watering in my flowers, this is what takes the most time, is putting this on the end of a hose. Honestly, it's crazy. Okay, I'm going to bring the camera in really close in case you all have never seen one of these. This is what I choose to use because I have so many flowers. It just makes it so much faster. You can certainly mix up the Proven Winners water-soluble food, which is what's in here. You can mix that up in a watering can for those of you that don't have a lot of flowers. But for me, in this big, huge property, this makes it go so much quicker. So I hope you all can see this. I'll bring it in real close. So basically how these work is you put your granular fertilizer in this right here. This unscrews, and there's a tube that draws up that fertilizer up through the sprayer and out. And you can change the type of spray right here. The most important thing on these hose end sprayers, especially this ortho one, is that you dial it in properly for the dilution strength. And I have it set at 1 tablespoon. And basically for this sprayer, it's how much fertilizer per gallon of water. And if you read on the Proven Winners water soluble, it's 1 tablespoon of fertilizer, or 1 scoop to 1 gallon of water. So I've got my strength set correctly. And then, oops, I need to go turn on the water up at the house, and then it's just squeeze and go. All I need to do is pull the trigger and go, and it will draw up just the right strength of fertilizer, mixes it with the water from the hose. And I don't spend a long time spraying. It's okay to get the foliage wet. I'm just going to come through, a few seconds for each plant. And just by the way, what's growing in this bed, this is my spun sugar celosia that I grew from seed from Floret Farm. Oh my gosh, I'm growing this next year. I'm going to collect seed because I absolutely love, look at the color. I mean, gorgeous. And then on this end of the bed are the Floret seeds, the zinnias called Unicorn Mix. Oh, I'll get you a close-up later of how beautiful they are. Anyhow, so that's all there is to it. This is the easy part. So I'm just going to go through here, water this bed, and then I actually do have a few more flowers in this garden, so I'll back the camera up and get that taken care of. I promise you all a close-up of the celosia. If you have not grown celosia before, oh my goodness, you need to put it on your list to try. So easy to grow from seed. Germination rate was great. I mean, and I chose this variety, this spun sugar, because it coordinates beautifully with the zinnia mix from Floret. This is called the Unicorn Mix, and just like the name implies, it is full of a variety of colors. I have been harvesting so many zinnias already, and to have this celosia in the floral arrangements, it's such a great compliment. I mean, look at that color, tinged on the edges with a limey green yellow, that beautiful chartreuse center. Then you've got pale pinks. Oh, you've got some apricot-y colors. And they all go together. They just look absolutely darling in a bouquet. So I backed the camera way up, and I'm just going to get to it. I need to get all these other flowers fertilized. Just FYI, what am I fertilizing? I've got dahlias here. I've got lots of marigolds. I even have some geranium over there. I think that's basically it. So I'm just going to get after this, and then I'm going to take you along with me as we fertilize the tomatoes and peppers, because they are known for being what we call heavy feeders. They really do require quite a bit of fertilizer to really pump out beautiful fruit. So that'll be next on our list. All right, here I am at my tomato bed, and oh my goodness, I'm having such a great tomato year, everybody. Oh, I just am delighted with what's happening, except I have to share a little thing that happened just the other day. So here are some sun gold cherry tomatoes. And so we had some friends in for the weekend recently, and I was going to create this delicious orzo salad with shrimp and all fresh herbs and veggies from the garden. And I was super excited. So the day before they got here, of course, I was in my garden and I had loads of these sun gold. And I also had on the other side a bunch of big, ripe, beautiful lemon boy and I think Carolina gold tomatoes. And I thought, you know what, I'm not going to pick them. I'm going to pick them the morning that they're arriving because I wanted it to be super fresh, right, in the salad. Came out the morning that they were to arrive when I was putting together this salad to pull and harvest all of these tomatoes. They were gone. I was like, wait a minute, what is wrong with me? I'm not that old yet that I can't remember. Like, no, there were tomatoes there yesterday. So we think somehow a squirrel got in here or something, and oh my gosh, everything was gone. Tomatoes were on the ground. I can't even show you now because they're pretty much rotten and gone away, and they were just missing. And so we've never had a squirrel that I know of get in here and take all the fruit, but we've been monitoring it and so far so good. So I'm hoping that's not going to happen again. Okay, that was a tangent, but you know, we're out here on 10 acres and we have lots of critters like a lot of you do. All right, so what we're going to do is we are going to use tomato tone on both the tomatoes, and I have some peppers in that bed. And all you need to do to apply this granular fertilizer, this goes for anything granular, it's best if you pull back, if you've got mulch, which we do. If you pull back your mulch a little bit, it's kind of hard to do with tomatoes, so you know, you got to really love your tomatoes to go to all this work, but it's so worth it because they need the extra food. Pull your mulch back, sprinkle in your recommended amount of the granular fertilizer. You can scratch it in if you want, and that's why I've got this little hand rake, and then water it in or turn your drip on later to give it a nice soak to get it started. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to pull the camera in really close and just show you on this first one. And then I'm just going to finish with the rest. I'll put my gloves on for this because the fertilizer is organic. It can't hurt me. It's not synthetic. It's not going to burn me or the plants. Let me move this little plant tag out of the way. And basically, let's see, tomato tone. What does it say? Direction for use. Single plants, 3 tablespoons around each plant. All right. 3 tablespoons. I do not measure. I measure with my eyes and my hands. Again, this is organic, so this is not going to burn your plant. All right? Unlike some of those synthetic fertilizers could possibly harm your plant. You can scratch it in with your hands, with the hand rake like I'm doing here, just a little tiny bit, and then water it in. What I'm going to do, since I like to mulch everything, it really does help with weed suppression and water retention. I'll put a little bit of this leaf mulch back up over the soil surface and water it in. So I am going to do what I just did to this sun gold tomato. I'm going to do that 7 more times on the 7 other tomatoes in this bed, and then my tomatoes will be fed. Well, believe it or not, you might think this is a marigold bed and not a pepper bed, but I have 6 pepper plants in here. I have 6 marigold plants in here, and actually I have a couple of basil plants in here. So it is packed full, but I am going to add a little tomato tone around each of the pepper plants. Same exact process I used for my tomatoes. I'm going to do it for the peppers. This particular bed, as you can probably see here, has straw mulch. So I'll pull that away from each of the pepper plants and give them some granular fertilizer. The last thing I need to take care of in the raised bed garden are some of my other vegetable crops. Again, I'm much more disciplined about making sure my tomatoes and peppers get monthly granular fertilizer. And you know, in a perfect world, I'd probably make sure my cucumbers and my green beans and my leeks and all of that also got it on a monthly basis, but you know, doesn't always happen. So I'm just going to use Garden Tone. This is just a wonderful basic, what is this? This is a 344, a balanced fertilizer. So I'm just going to go here, and I'm not going to rough up the soil so much because I'm going to run the drip, but I'm just going to broadcast some of this in and amongst some of these other crops. And the beauty of organic fertilizer is if you get some on the leaves, it's not the end of the world. It won't burn the leaves, but in a perfect world, I'd probably do a little bit better job of getting down low to the base of the plant when I'm applying. But some people just broadcast, meaning they'll just take handfuls out in their veggie gardens and just do it like that. So you do you, whatever works for you. But in particular, organic fertilizers aren't going to harm your plants and burn them because the chemicals are not there like they are in synthetic. So before we head up to the house and go all the way around to the mixed borders, I need to water in my 2 pots out here in front of the greenhouse. Those of you that follow my channel know that I love to change these pots up with annuals every year. And this beautiful sunflower is called Suncredible. It's a branching sunflower, and look how big it got. And I'll bring the camera in a little closer in a minute. And I underplanted it with Nemesia. Nemesia is doing okay. It's getting a little leggy. So if you guys grow Nemesia and you like to cut it back midway in the summer, like some plants, let me know in the comments if I should do that. I'm about ready to give it a little rejuvenation prune, but I'm not going to bother today because it is not Trimming Tuesday. That's the beauty of my kind of process of not worrying about things if it's not the day to do them. Unless I have a lot of extra time, I want to focus on fertilizing. And I'll know that I can get to the trimming part or deadheading or pruning on Tuesdays. That's the day I devote to that. So I don't have to look at everything in my garden and start getting stressed thinking, oh my gosh, I got to trim this, I got to do that, I can't get it all done today. I know Tuesday's coming. And so next Tuesday, I'll get out here and I will make a decision about this Nemesia on Tuesday. All right, we're up here on the north side of the house, and so I think I want to start with fertilizing all of my annuals with my hose end sprayer. And so again, I've got to swap out. This again takes the most time. Oh my gosh, what in the world? Okay, woo! All right, so a little excess water left in that from the last time I used this hose. Here's the other thing you want to be really careful about. This water coming out of this hose, even though it's not been in the sun that long, it's warm, and you don't want to put hot water on your plants. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run this baby just long enough that I know that the water's cooled off. So it's already getting cooler, which is a good thing. All right, that's good enough. So I got to turn it back off and get this put on. All right, so what am I going to fertilize in this tiered bed? With this, I am going to do the lemon coral sedum in the front. I'm going to do the Superbena verbena. I've got some Supertunia petunias in here, some wave petunias. I've got some coleus. All the coleus in this bed I started from cuttings from the mother plant. So I think that's basically it. So just the annuals in the bed, and then we're going to go down to my limelight or little lime punch hydrangeas, and I'm going to show you how I use rose fertilizer on those. Now it's time to get to my beautiful panicle hydrangeas. This beauty is the Little Lime Punch. First panicle hydrangeas I ever grew, and wow, wow, wow. They are stellar. They're strong, they're mighty, they don't get enormous. Check them out. Little Lime Punch, so fun. They love where they are. I think this is probably their 4th year. So again, I'm gonna use Rose Tone. Rose fertilizer works great on these types of hydrangeas. I am going to apply about 1.25 cups around, and they say around the drip line. So drip line isn't right where the main stem meets the soil. It's actually more out, right? The drip line is however big they are. So I'm just gonna scatter about a 1.5 cups per plant, and we'll water them in later, and it'll start to break down and feed these gorgeous hydrangea. Next up for the rose fertilizer are my other panicle hydrangeas, and these are only in their 2nd year. I just planted these last, I think, May. These are Limelight Prime. So again, they're a panicle, super easy to grow. They love sun, they love hot weather. And again, they're only in their 2nd year, and look how big they are. So I think they're supposed to max out between 4 and 5 feet tall and wide, and there are 3 of them. But wow, 2nd year, I don't know that they need fertilizer, right? But again, just like our roses, just like our annuals, hydrangeas, big blooms, beautiful flowers, and that's why I take the time to fertilize these flowering shrubs and perennials, because it does make a difference. All right, so I had to do the swap. I had to take off my wand that I just used to water in the fertilizer we put on the hydrangea for my annual water-soluble fertilizer. And this particular pot has one of my favorite annuals. I've never grown these before. These are called Super Bell Magic Grapefruit Calibrachoa. Oh my gosh, you guys. If you're not growing these, put them on your list for next year. They are amazing. And in the center here is a rose. I'm not going to use the rose fertilizer. I'm just going to use this just to save myself a step, quite honestly. But this is another proven winner's shrub rose. This is reminiscent coral. I actually just harvested some of the flowers for some bouquets, so it's not in bloom right now, but I do see some buds, so it's going to get a little dose too. And then behind me, my green stalk vertical planter this year. Isn't it sweet? I chose to put 3 different types of Calibrachoa, and I'm going to just water the pockets with this fertilizer wherever there's a plant. And again, they don't need a lot, but they all deserve a little gourmet drink. So that's what I'm going to give them. Whoops. So I am planning to do another video in the next, probably within the next 2 or 3 weeks, and I'm going to call it my container update. And I'm going to take you with me. I have been trying to take pictures of all of my containers since I planted them once a month to show you the progress that they've made throughout the season. And I mean, nothing speaks louder than a good before and after, or that timeline of how your plants can grow. And if you all follow my channel, you know that I'm a huge proponent of not over packing your containers. To tend them, to watch them grow and develop and fill in gives me a lot of satisfaction and saves me a lot of money, or lets me use my annual budget in multiple places. So rather than putting 5 plants, these are 16-inch baskets. And instead of cramming this full with 5 to 8 plants, which you see a lot of other gardeners on YouTube do, no way. This is 3 plants. That's all it took, because I know how vigorous these plants can get, and they do so much better for me rather than having too many plants in a pot that competes for soil moisture, it competes for fertilizer, it just competes for space. And I'd rather only plant 2 or 3 and be patient, and within a month's time, they're just gonna fill in so nicely. So stay tuned for that. So I've got 2 hanging baskets here filled with Calibrachoa and some petunias, both proven winners. And I think this one has, this one has some lobelia. It's kind of starting to get a little bit sad because it's so hot. But anyhow, this gets some of that great proven winners fertilizer, and I'll slowly pan around here. And you can see that other one. I mean, look at how gorgeous these look, everybody. They look like brand new plants, but no. I potted those up back in the first week of May. Here we are in the middle of, towards the end of July, and they still look super healthy and happy. Over here, I've got some caladium and some other coleus tucked in this shady spot. They're looking great. And of course, look at this. Oh, I love this container box. It has done so well this year. It's got Wicked Witch coleus. It's got the the Surefire Rose Begonia. It's got some more little coleus, and everybody, I snapped some of these off when I was pruning that plant over there the other day. Probably 3 weeks ago. Snapped off some, and I thought, you know what, I'm just going to shove one in the soil. Look at that, everybody. One little snip has turned into that plant. Isn't that amazing? So yeah, this would also and will get fertilized every Friday. And there's some ivy growing up the trellis. So it makes a difference, everyone. If you want your hanging baskets and your containers to shine the entire summer, they need to be fed to give you all this beautiful flowers. Here we are on the south side of the house, and this is one of my raised bed boxes for my overflow cut flower garden. I have 3 or 4 types of zinnia in here, different from what you saw down in the other raised bed garden. I've been doing quite a bit of reading off and on about zinnias, and I was always told that they don't need any fertilizer, that they like crappy soil, etc. and so forth. But then, I don't know, over the last year or so, I've looked at it more and more what people are recommending, and they're saying no, they do need some fertilizer. So they're on my Fertilizer Friday weekly dose of the good water soluble. So yeah, they're gonna get a little dose, and then we're gonna move around to the last part of the garden where I've got a bunch of annuals on the west side of the house. All right, we are to the final area for Fertilizer Friday. We are on the west side of the house right now. It is starting to heat up. I got an early start this morning, but wow. It's not taking any time in my July garden to get warm. And so my camera's starting to overheat. So hopefully we can get in the last little bits. I've got the camera in the shade for the moment. All right, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna turn the camera around. I'm gonna take you up close and personal to the plants I'm going to fertilize and the ones I'm not, and tell you why. All right, we're gonna start in this bed right here. And so here's what I'm going to fertilize. I am gonna fertilize all of these annuals that line the front of the border. And let me come in really close and show you. So yeah, you can see some beautiful salvia, Supertunia Mini Vista Yellow. I've got some lantana, some Vista Paradise. All right, so basically, these are gonna get the water soluble fertilizer. This is a brand new hydrangea I just planted, so it will get nothing. I don't like to fertilize my brand new shrubs or perennials in their first season. I give them a big dose of Biotone starter fertilizer when I plant them, but then I want them to get established. This is called pufferfish. I've got a rose over there, a little rose reminiscent yellow from Proven Winners. I might put a little fertilizer on that. And then as we make our way down here, this is, these are all new shrubs. This is beautiful Pugster Blue Buddleia. I'm not gonna fertilize any of these baby plants for sure. Leave those to get established. And again, I fertilized them heavily with Biotone root starter fertilizer when I planted them. Clematis doesn't need any fertilizer, but oh, if you've seen any of my videos, you gotta check out, I think it's the June garden tour. Whoa. My clematis was amazing. And then we'll end with these two Gertrudical roses. I've got a pair of twins here in these obelisks. I will be putting some rose tone in the soil around them. So let's get after it. All right, time to give my last roses some fertilizer. This is my Gertrudical David Austin climbing rose. I've had her for 4 or 5 years. I did an extremely hard rejuvenation, kind of redo prune of her in April. Cut her way back, and I'm trying to train her to go around. That's supposedly how you're supposed to do it with climbers instead of letting the shoots go straight up. So, you know, she's a little stunted, but it didn't stunt her flower power because in May, oh my goodness, so many flowers. She is taking a much deserved break right now in her flowering, but she is a repeat bloomer. So she is, let's see, I can't tell if there's any buds on this one, but I expect to have some more flowers off and on this season. So again, drip line, same thing for all the other shrubs and perennials. Drip line is just right in here. Again, follow the directions on the package. All fertilizers are different, but this Rose Tone Organic recommends about 1.25 cups, 1.5 cups for your roses. So I just kind of eyeball it. I'm going to scratch it into the surface of the soil. Roses are heavy feeders, so are hydrangeas. That's why I bother doing this. It absolutely makes a difference. I mean, think about all the gorgeous blooms the plant is giving us, and that's why fertilizing roses and hydrangeas is absolutely a worthwhile pursuit. Well, I think our front porch is the best spot to end our Fertilizer Friday. Last stop on the loop around the gardens today. I really appreciate you guys hanging out with me. I hope you learned a little bit about fertilizing that you didn't know before. I know it got a little technical in the beginning, but I do feel like I just remember when I was a beginning gardener and people were talking about you got to fertilize this and that and how often, and just like, whoa, my head was spinning. So I hope I kind of simplified it. I didn't go too deep into the technical aspects, but I do feel like for some of you that have been wondering, I hope that information was helpful for sure. There is another YouTuber, Jacques in the Garden. He came out of the Epic Gardening group. He has his own YouTube channel, and I will make sure I put a link in the description below to one of his videos. He did a phenomenal video on fertilizing, and he actually has found that we tend to under-fertilize our plants, in particular vegetables. So you guys might find that interesting. So a couple of other things. Let's see. What did I want to make sure to share? Oh, I get a lot of questions about this spray hose fertilizer that I use because I have so many things to fertilize. So when do you know it's done? Basically, I can tell it's done when the liquid in here basically ends up turning clear, because I dump a ton of that granular fertilizer in here. I set it to 1 tablespoon per gallon. So when this starts to get really clear, then I know, screw this off, add more fertilizer, fill it up, and get started again. So in case you were wondering, that's how I tell. How long do I hold it at each one of my plants? I don't know. Maybe some of you were taking notes or timing me. Maybe 10 seconds. Doesn't take a lot. The other really important tip to share with you all is that best practice, you don't want to fertilize like with something like this on a plant that is bone dry. And as you know, if you watch my channel, everything I have in my garden just about is on drip irrigation, and it just ran this morning. So all of my beds, including my raised bed garden where I have veggies and herbs, that got watered this morning. My containers are not on drip irrigation. So definitely, if it's bone dry, you want to water it a little bit first and then add your water-soluble fertilizer. Another thing I get asked is how long does it take to do this? And on average, when all I am doing is fertilizing my annuals, all my hanging baskets, all the containers, the annuals in the ground, as I go around the whole house and my raised bed garden where I have annuals mixed in with my vegetables, it takes me about an hour total. And this makes a huge difference. Before I got this, I was filling up a 2-gallon watering can and doing that over and over and over and over. And it's like, oh no, there has got to be a better way, a faster way. So this is what I found works for me. In terms of these special monthly or twice a season kind of fertilizing that we did today in combination with the annuals, I would say that takes me about 2 hours total because, you know, I've got to move the mulch, put the fertilizer in, dig it in, put the mulch back on, and water it in. So, and I have to do that to individual plants. So that takes some doing. But again, I'm only doing that every 4 to 6 weeks throughout the growing season. And it is so worth it. So anyhow, I thank you guys so much for hanging out with me today. And I appreciate your support for my channel. So until next time, I'm going to wish everybody out there happy gardening.